This absolute behemoth of a lens is the Sigma 28 to 45 f1.8 zoom lens. Yes, f1.8, just like a lot of your prime lenses probably are. This lens is big, it's built like a tank, and it also offers a really cool opportunity for people who are wanting something really unique out of a zoom lens. Before we hop into the first impressions, I want to mention that Sigma loaned me this lens as well as a 50mm f2 lens, so I get to use these for a little while and then I'm going to send them back. No money exchanged hands. I just get to make cool content about these lenses, so you'll be seeing a bit of that in the near future. This lens is built extremely well. It kind of feels like it's built like a tank, I think mostly because of its weight, but we'll talk about that in a second. The build quality is on par with the recent 24 to 70 2.8 version 2 Sigma lens that I recently did a review on. You can check that out up there. The body is mostly metal, or at least metal in all the right places where you would want it to be. The zoom feels very nice. The 24 to 45 focal range feels not too stiff, but also not too loose. And that goes for the focusing ring as well. You got a nice aperture ring that you can either click or you can declick it for that nice smooth transition that some people like to do for video. Another great feature on this lens that was present with the 24 to 70 is this aperture ring lock button. So if you put that in place, let's say you want to keep it on auto, or if you want to just keep it at that nice f1.8 aperture, you can just lock it into place and that aperture ring is not going anywhere, which is great because I own a lens that has an aperture ring that doesn't have a locking feature, and sometimes I'll feel like I'm supposed to be on auto, but it bumps over to f22 and everything's dark and I can't figure it out why, and I can't change it on the camera. It's because that ring slips. So having the lock is a really nice and convenient feature to have that just makes it a bit easier for the user. You get your classic autofocus manual focus switch and then two custom buttons that you can customize through the camera. On the front of the lens, you get an 82mm filter thread for this beautiful glass element. And you also get a very nice lens hood that has a little locking button. So when it locks in, you're good to go with the lens hood. But then whenever you want to take it off, click in this button and twist, and you don't have to have it on there. The only other feature worth mentioning is the fact that this is an internal zoom lens, so you don't have like the elements sticking out any further. And thank goodness, because this lens is already pretty stinking big. When it comes to the size and weight of this lens, it is certainly substantial. I mean, for size comparison, again, I'll hold up the 50mm from Sigma next to this lens, and you can just see that it's, I mean, you can literally put two of these lenses on top of each other, and they may not even get to the height of this lens. Now, this is shorter than a lot of like 70 to 200 lenses, and maybe just a little bit bigger than a 24 to 70 as far as the length goes, but the weight is certainly substantial as well. This lens comes in at 2.1 pounds, which if you're not accustomed to can certainly become straining. Even recording this video right now, my right arm is beginning a bit of a workout, so I might switch to my left hand for a little bit. Now, I think some people might think, why the heck this lens has to be so big? Reason being is because it's a zoom that is f1.8, and having the ability to go stop down all the way to 1.8 aperture and have it be constant through an entire zoom range is just, it's a big undertaking, and it makes a larger, more substantial lens. If you think of it this way, you're kind of combining different prime lens focal lengths into one lens. So imagine you were carrying 2, 3, or 4 different prime lenses on your person versus just one of these. The weight would probably even out to be about the same, or even a little bit more with those extra prime lenses. I really wanted to try this lens out because I tend to be a prime lens shooter. I'm currently shooting on a 20mm 1.8 lens. I also have a 35 that I love to use, and an 85 as well. So I like to use prime lenses because I love having that low f-stop of 1.8 or even lower depending on what kind of prime lenses you have. So it's an interesting concept to think that you can kind of eliminate the use of one or a couple of different prime lenses and just replace it with one monster lens for your setup. It's kind of an interesting appeal. And the price of this lens also makes it a very compelling option at $1,349 US at the time of this recording. And at that price, it is less than the 3 prime lenses that I currently have in my kit, which just kind of makes you think like, maybe this could be a good option for people who don't want to have multiple lenses or invest in multiple lenses, but they want to have that nice 1.8 aperture at multiple focal lengths, but it's just on one lens. As far as performance and image quality, I don't have a ton of options because this is a first impression video. More will be coming on the way. But what I can tell you is that optically, this lens looks great. And that's because it's a Sigma Art Series lens, which is their top of the line. And the Art Series lens is infamous in the photography and videography world for always being tack sharp and having nice color representation. I can also tell you that the autofocus works particularly well on this lens. But instead of just talking about it, I'm going to go ahead and put the lens on the camera so you can see exactly how good it looks and how the autofocus performs. So just for reference, this is my Sony 20mm f1.8 lens. I'm going to put the Sigma on, and when we do, I will then be at 28 millimeters, which is the widest that this lens goes. And now we are at 28 millimeters on the Sigma lens. This is at 1.8. I haven't changed anything. I'm sitting literally in the exact same spot. And here it is at 45 millimeters, again at f1.8. You see that the out of focus elements behind me, the shallow depth of field, looks really incredible because it's basically a prime lens at 1.8. How's the autofocus? Well, if I hold up this lens, you'll see that it transitions nicely and we get even more of that buttery background, that autofocus. And when I remove it, it transitions nicely to my face. Now, before I do a full review of what this lens is fully capable of, I just wanted to make a first impressions video because this lens really is just so unique. Like, companies just don't make 1.8 zoom lenses. In fact, the only other time I saw this happen was with Sigma, and they did this years ago. If you've been in the photo video community, you would probably know about their 18 to 35 f1.8 lens for Canon EF mount, which is a lens you can actually buy right now. Now, the performance may not be there as far as things like autofocus goes and different types of features like that, but I just think it's really cool that there's a company out there doing this type of innovation in the camera space, because it just doesn't seem like many other people are daring or willing enough to go and try to make this type of stuff. Now, again, without having used this lens very much, I am really curious to see how the 28 to 45 focal length is going to work out in a more practical setting. I think if I had my preference, I would rather it be kind of like that older 18 to 35. That seems to be a little bit more of a sweet spot for things that I tend to do, or maybe even a little bit more on the further end of the spectrum, like, I don't know, like 35 to 70 or something. Those kind of seem a little bit more of a usable focal range, but I'll let you know how this 28 to 45 shapes out. And if you happen to be watching this before the full lens review comes out, let me know down below in the comments what are some things that you might be interested in knowing about this lens or seeing in a full review, and I'll see if I can find a way to get it into that video. Also, if you want to just check out this lens and get more information for yourself, I'm leaving a link down below in the video description. And while you're down there, if you got some value out of this video, why don't you go ahead and add some value right back to it by hitting that like button. And go ahead and subscribe, join the pack, join the community. And until the next time, my name is Zach Sopak. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.